Kia ora and welcome. Got Steve Nikolovski back. I messaged him the other day and I said I want to talk to you, talk to Steve PC post COVID. Not that it's not that it's over, mate, but geez, everyone's
But
sick of
happened.
it.
I mean, can you even be sick of it, really? Like, it's just, it's on and on and on. It's a thing now.
It's a thing. It's a vibe.
It's kind of like before Christ and after Christ. It's like, well, that's still technically happening, eh?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, man. But
Yeah.
mate, you've shifted back to Geelong. You're getting some interesting questions from your, what do you call her, your nonna, your nana,
My baba, Macedonian is
baba. Yeah,
baba. Yeah,
yeah.
baba.
How
I'm back home. Yeah.
how does that sort of tweak your conditioning and your newfound freedom, and then the two worlds collide? Like your conditioning versus what you've undone, and then you're back into the vibe, the shape, the thing that shaped you as a human in those formative years.
Jesus. You know how to dive right into the trigger point, don't you? Far out. Yeah. Well, I guess for a bit of context, like, moving from Melbourne to Geelong, is me moving back to my hometown, which has been a long time coming. And so, yeah, I've moved back in with family. Um, it's been an interesting process. I mean, anyone who's grown up in a Macedonian household or something similar to that, you'd probably know how in each other's business everything can be. Like, yeah, it's definitely like everyone's talking, everyone is up in each other's business, and we all pretty. It's a small house, it's an old house, so it is quite comfortable, let's say. um, I guess like when I was still in Melbourne, I knew for a few months before I came here that I was going to be coming, and I was like, all right, I haven't been here for 7 years. There's a lot's changed since then. And I was really, really threatened about, like, am I going to have my own space? Am I going to actually be able to be my own person now? Because I've changed a lot as well. Like, talking to you about the type of subjects that we talk about isn't exactly the most common thing in this type of community. So I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. And I was feeling really suffocated about that. But when I got here, it actually wasn't that bad. I was pretty happy I was just really grateful. I was like, I mean, I'm blessed that I've got the opportunity to be able to come back here, that I don't have to worry about stresses like having to pay for rent or anything like that. Like, I'm actually, a lot of people, especially in Western culture, it's like, oh, you got to move out and you stay out and everything. But for us, it's kind of like, well, family live together, family help each other out. And this is just how it was very normal for them. And it kind of was pretty normal for me growing up, having everybody living together. So when I came back, I'd forgotten about that aspect of just communal living and being in each other's business. And I actually really appreciated that, which I wasn't expecting. Um, Especially in this world where we are isolated and we are forced to just do our own thing and go our own way, and loneliness has become the biggest killer on the planet. How nice is it to actually have people around who do care so much about you that they are getting up in your grill about everything? So that's kind of the attitude I took on board. And that's not to say it's been easy. Actually, it hasn't been at all. There's still a lot of, it is really annoying, but ultimately I'm just being grateful about it. I know it's, one day, I mean, things are going to move on. Either they're not going to be here or I'm not going to be here, or life changes. One day I might not get this opportunity again. So for a while I got it, I'm trying to make the most of it.
Mate, that's a awesome reframe. How isolated were you when it came to sort of stay indoors, don't go anywhere? That'll be a couple of days and a couple of weeks later. How isolated were you then?
Which time? That's happened a few times.
Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Auckland's sympathising with you a little bit at the moment, but
Yeah.
one time, both times.
Yeah, nah. The isolation. Well, last time isolation, like when it was first happening, that was when I spoke to you last time. So it was just at the start of it all. And so it's happened a couple of times since then. Well, most of the isolation I copped in Melbourne. So Melbourne copped it really bad. We were indoors for months. It was meant to be a few weeks and then extended. Pretty much towards the end of that second big lockdown was when I was like, I'm out of here. So I moved back to Geelong. And dude, that was like coming to a whole nother planet, because I'd been in my room so long. I came here, no one's wearing masks anywhere because Geelong, it's a little bit more country town. No one gives a shit. So everyone's just walking around. No one's wearing masks. First thing I did was go to a pub with my brother and one of my best friends from Geelong. And I was like, I mean, it was a big homecoming for me. So this was like really weird anyway. But I walk into this pub and one, I'm walking into a pub. That hasn't been a thing. Two, there's people here and they're mingling and they're socializing. Three, no one's wearing masks. Everyone's like, it was like nothing was going on. And that was the most bizarre thing that I'd experienced in a long time, just because I had been so isolated for so long. To them, an hour down the road, they didn't even know what was going on. And for me, it was like, wow, people in Melbourne are still going through this right now. I'm just coming out of it. This is insane. Bit of a culture shock, really.
Yeah. And like how it's amazing how quickly it is that we can sort of turn those ideas around on ourselves. Like, it's quite funny for me when I have been to Auckland and you like see the masks, and at Christmas time I had to take a flight and sort of got to the airport area to, you know, drop the car off at the car park and then get on the minivan, and the minivan was like, wear a mask on the minivan. And I was like, oh shit. And then I was like, oh, a mask. Oh well. And then got to the airport, and of course before you jumped on the plane they gave you a mask. I was like, all right, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'd prepared for that. And then got to Queenstown, and it was just all of a sudden, like as soon as you left the airport again, it was just like, don't worry about it anymore. It's like, there's like polar worlds. And then, you know, I haven't really watched the news and shit for a number of years, but yeah, the moment that you do sort of take in something that's going on in the UK or the US, or, you know, I listen to a number of different podcasts and you hear them talk about the situations, and you know, even in places like the US where everything's different, and it's just really bizarre. And same with Australia, like you see Melbourne City versus Greater Victoria versus the rest of Australia, and you're like, wow, that's strange. And then even like how Sydney handled their little stuff up was kind of like escalating areas out from that little zone, and hey, it worked that time for them, but yeah, it's just so weird. All the information always changes, and New Zealand we're no different. You know, get a little outbreak, and like, oh no, it was sorted. Then 2 weeks later, it's like, oh no, not quite sorted. And then there's been no more cases since. I was kind of like, oh, what? How do you even do this thing? I don't. And people, you know, you find yourself complaining, and you're like, actually, shit, I've got no idea. Stuff's having that job. Stuff's having that job trying to decide what to do when, man, every decision you make could backfire on you or seem overkill you. Like, this is all weird.
It's all weird. No one really knows, but yet we have to act as if some people know and some people don't, knowing very well that no one really knows. It's like, well, you can't. No, I don't buy that.
Yeah.
None of you fucking know. None of us do. Nobody's who's running anything really knows. I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm just a real dummy as well. To be honest, I don't really pay much attention.
Yeah.
Like at all anymore.
Like it's really, really weird. Like when it comes to being assertive in something, like to have that role of, say, health minister or health advisor, and, you know, I don't know about you, but even in my job, which I've done for 7 years, I still have moments of imposter syndrome, especially when things are new. And so, yeah, so like one of those jobs, it's like, man, how do you do that job? And like, what's that person going through? It must be bizarre, because yeah, if it's anything like my day to day, geez, he must be going, whoa, what's happening?
Life, for real.
Yeah.
And it would be tough. I mean, like down here, I mean, so many people hating on Dan Andrews all the time. And fair enough. I'm not big on politics. Like I never have been. It's not too much for us. But when I would a little bit earlier, when I would watch stuff, I'd be like, I don't like what he's doing or anything. But then he'd talk and he'd have a conversation. I'm like, yeah, some of the things you're saying, you're being a sneaky fuck. But some of the things you're saying, it's like, I get it. Like you need to say that, and he is being pretty. Like there were some qualities about him that I actually respect that about him. So it's not all black and white. Like
no.
you need to play your part and you need to say some things. I do feel like, and yeah, I'm not going to get too much into politics or anything, but like, I just feel from a leadership front, I question what I just question what people think leadership is anymore,
Mm.
because we've got our leaders up there who are our leaders, but they like it's not new that there's fuckery afoot when it comes to politics. Like before COVID, everyone was like, "Oh, I don't trust the government very much." That's just pretty. Politicians do lie. It is kind of part of the role. It's like if you're going to be in that game, you're going to be playing by those rules, and that's how you get by, and that's what works, and that's fine. But I feel like leadership and politics are a very different thing. Just as the way I feel like being a leader or being a boss are very different things. Like they're not the same thing either. I'd be so much more inclined right from the start of this to listen to every single rule about masks, about lockdowns, about everything. If at the start of the sentence all they said was like, look, guys, this is the situation. This is what we know. This is what we don't know. We need to do something. We're going with this course of action. Might not be perfect. We might get some things wrong. We might get some things right, but this is what we're doing. We really hope that you guys get behind us and back us, and we're going to try and get through this. That to me feels like it's so much of a more inclusive, and that's what a leader would say, as opposed to, well, no, this is the facts. This is the facts. You have to listen to us. And then someone's like, yeah, okay, what about these facts? Well, no, that's just a lie. Well, you can't, that's just not true. I can't listen to you when you say that.
Yeah, you've said the word truth there, and when no one knows, how can it be truth? It's just this kind of educated guesses that like they might end up being true, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And when you're on the receiving end of the information and there's a massive knowledge gap in the information, I don't know. It's like that balance between being skeptical and open and wanting to have some sovereignty over your decision making, but then also feeling vulnerable because, again, there's a massive knowledge gap going on, and you kind of like, and that's where the sort of internal turmoil and then escalating angst comes in, because it's just like so many people confused, and that's what's creating a lot of fear. And I don't know how you deal with the fear as well. It's kind of like the scale of things. Like you're sort of demonstrating that at the moment. You like go back to this family situation, and it's kind of like, well, here's our hierarchy, and again that leadership thing. Like here's our hierarchy within our family, and we can sort of fit into our zones, and there's a little bit of push and pull going on. And as we all develop and mature, perfect world sort of scenario type stuff, we can be a bit more fluid in what things are. But as a child, you were looking up to your baba and your parents, and it was kind of like they were the authority. But then when you scale that out to population, Melbourne City, Victoria, you're like, yeah, I'd like to have a say in this, even though and there's plenty of people that like shouldn't have a say in that, but it's still the same thing. Eh? It's a crazy observation of human nature, and how at scale shit just goes bananas.
Well, it just shows how it shows the scale of what our internal worlds are like. I think that's what it is for me. It's more of a bit of a mirror. It's where let me try and explain this a little bit clearer. It's like,
no, I kind of get you. Go with it though. Yeah.
Know what I'm saying? Like we've got, if that's the kind of leaders that we've got right now, the ones who can just openly lie because people are don't really know how to look into that fear or address that fear within themselves. So we have created an environment that produces this kind of a leader, and that's how we look up to. Ultimately, that's what it is, right? That's what a democracy is. It's a reflection on what's going on through the people. So this isn't just Melbourne or like Auckland or wherever. This is the whole world. You look at the kind of leaders, you look at Trump, you look at everybody. That is a reflection of what's actually going on. And now we can talk about that at scale, but I like to look at it more on a micro thing as well, because I think that's where the scaling starts from. So how do you address that fear on a global, on a more scalable thing? Well, it's going to be messy. I think we're seeing it happen. Simple as that. People are going to be confronted with their own shadows. People are going to be confronted with their own shit. And we've been seeing this happen for a year now. And some people are going to thrive off that, and some people are just going to close themselves off and just isolate themselves from the world and be good with it. So I think it's more of a reflection on what really is going on. And I think, how do you confront with that fear? Well, I can think of a few ways. You ever done an ice bath?
Yeah, bro. just on that, like you're saying, the sort of landscape that we've got right now is a reflection of us individually or collectively, and at the same token, it's providing us with an opportunity and almost space to reflect back at ourselves. How am I handling this? Like you and I and a bunch of people through Instagram sort of talk about this sort of sovereignty type idea, and sometimes that creates a real sort of selfishness thing, because you need to sort of deconstruct your own ego, and that brings up internal fears, that brings up internal conflicts. And then if you do tweak some of those things that are your characteristics, your behavior, your personality, and then that shines a light on people close to you because they're used to you fitting into some sort of groove, that creates some turmoil. And uh, it's that's where sort of the isolation and time was sort of quite good, because it gave you an opportunity, gave you space. But now that things, some people might have worked through it, some people might have gone into their cave and are now afraid to come out of. Now it's creating more conflict because there's new people, there's old people, there's people that have resorted to type, and again, like you said, it's all so messy.
It's gotta be.
Yeah. What you sort of have worked in this sort of health paradigm shifting sphere for the last couple of years, being at the gym, and now being in touch with people like Dave and Mark Cluer, and now going back to Geelong and bringing that there and expose, it's Wim Hof's a household name now generally, but what's it been like actually bringing that home community into the idea of, right, now we're going to act on this, and now we're going to face whatever the fuck comes up?
Honestly, man, it's a dream come true.
Awesome.
That's what it is. It's a dream come true. I, like, growing up in Geelong, I've had a lot of different groups of friends and different experiences and everything. Like, I've had a very kind of I've had a lot of perspective growing up, which I think I've talked about in one of the earlier podcasts. But there was always an element of me. If you asked me what I want to be when I grow up, when I was younger, I never had an answer. So I could not tell you what I wanted to be when I grew up. When I ended up leaving Geelong, it's because I hit a point where I was like, all right, well, I finished uni and nothing appeals to me. Nothing is standing out for me. I don't know what the fuck I'm meant to do. So I might as well get out of this little small town bubble and go open my mind up and see what the world's about a little bit. And so I got to Melbourne, which wasn't too far, but it was enough. But there was always an element of me that was like, most people here would get a typical kind of 9-to-5 job, or they'd become tradies, and none of that really fitted for me. So I always felt like I had a little story in the back of my head, which wasn't really as profound back then as it was now, but there was always this story in the back of my head. And it went a little like, I'm going to leave Geelong. I'm going to go to the big city. I'm going to learn something that's really important, and I'm going to bring that back so that I can help the people down here.
Classic
Don't know what
hero's
it
journey,
is.
man.
Literally the hero's journey. I hadn't heard of Joseph Campbell back then. I had no idea what that was, but yeah, that's literally like that. Oh, that's how deep embedded it is, eh? It was deep in my psyche. I got to go do this. But yeah. So coming back was a little bit like, I didn't feel when I left Fifth Element and when I started going out on my own, I didn't know exactly. I didn't feel complete. I didn't think I was done, but at the same time, I just knew I got to come back to Geelong. There's been this calling for so long for wanting to come back, and I'd stayed in Melbourne because there was good opportunities and I was learning from the best and I was hanging around the best, and it was just amazing. But I did want to come back, and I came back, and it's just been this really interesting dynamic change, because for me, it was like Geelong's always a few years behind Melbourne, a little bit smaller, a little bit slower. So it always catches up eventually. But coming from what I'd experienced and the type of social groups I was around and the communities I was amongst, I saw a lot of that here. I saw a lot of people who had it inside of them, but I did see a lot of gaps. I felt like there's something that's not quite bringing my tribe of people together.
Mm-hmm.
And so as far as I was concerned, well, that's my duty to create this now. So that's what I started doing basically. Me and my friend were just down at the beach every morning, just talking about life, being all sad with each other and talking about our problems. And we do a bit of breathing and we'd go for a swim. Then it started to warm up. So I got one of those 1-person ice baths off eBay. And I was like, all right, let's start doing some ice now. So we started doing that. I did kind of, because I saw the void, I was like, oh man, ice baths would, like big group community ice baths would be really cool down here. I can see this happening eventually. So that was in my head, but ultimately we just started inviting a couple more people so that the ice could be cheaper, so that we could continue to do ice baths without spending too much money. That was the essence of it. And then it's just grown since then. Like now we've got this awesome community of people that are rocking up every single weekend. We're outdoors. We do the breathing, we do the ice type of stuff, but we also do a lot of sharing. We also like to just talk about things, get into little groups, really be open and get vulnerable and go to those places, you know, like have those conversations and just network it with each other. And yeah, I think that's really what it was about for me, man. It was like, what do I know? What can I come? What can I bring here? What's here? What's not here for me? That's ultimately where I look at it. What's not here that I know ought to be here that I want? And if it's not here, well, then it's my responsibility to create it right now because I have been amongst this and I understand what's going on. That's basically where it's all happened. So I don't know whether that's actually if that's my hero's journey playing out, if that's the vision I had when I was younger. I'm not certain. Is this it? Is this good enough? Is this what I wanted to really bring back and help? But so far it's what I got, and so far it's been great.
Nice. So the sort of idea comes from filling a void. Is that sort of your pain, that gap in living at home? You know, the thing that's not there for your home.
Part of it, yes, and part of it, no. Like I think it definitely is feeling a bit of pain.
Mm-hmm.
I was speaking to my therapist about this when it was happening because I was sort of like, I was very conflicted. I'm like, am I doing this because it's genuinely I want a community and I want to meet people, or am I just doing this in a selfish way so that I can have the spotlight and just be surrounded by friends that I can hang out with? That was I was sort of conflicted with that. And her response was that if we are doing something to fill some type of void, reality if it's happening and people are coming, it's because people have a very similar void within them. That's why people are resonating with it. And so I thought, well, that is very true because I know very well that a lot of people are really isolated and really lacking connection and community in this ever-connected social media, socially distanced world.
I love that. Ever connected, socially distant social media world. Yeah. And it's like, you know, tribe, it's creating a new tribe. And last time we sort of spoke about that lack of, you know, speaking things like hero's journey here, you know, that lack of passing through the generations. And it's kind of like now you run into the 30s and, you know, people just look at myself, like relationships are falling down. I'm sort of a decent plane ride from my family this weekend. I'm missing out on my younger brother, dad, and my grandmother's all having a birthday party in Christchurch, and you know, missing out on that. And my daughter's in Pukekohe, and I don't see her till next weekend, and it's just kind of like, fucking hell, what has happened to the world? And so there's this sort of conflict of, actually, Steve, you're probably in a really awesome place, being back to the foundation, back to your family, back to the soul of your beginning of life, and to then grow and create from there is pretty cool. Now, you know, everyone always has their challenges and always has their stories, but in terms of that aspect and the foundations of what makes a good life, you know, there's, like you said at the start, there's a lot to be grateful in that. And I'm the same, you know, I've got so much to be grateful for. But mine's sort of at an opposite parallel to you. Like I've got this career, this thing that I've wanted to do, and I've got a beautiful daughter, and she brings me so much joy. But at the same time, there's this like connectivity, which is what you fostered, that missing of family, which is what you've returned to. And so it's the world is a strange place. Like what you say, socially connected, socially distant society. It's amazing. It sums it up, eh?
Where we're at. It's where we're at. No surprises that we're talking to each other right now.
Oh, through the Zoom, across the frickin' Tasman.
Dude, if I could hug you right now, I would. Man.
Yeah, cheers, bro. Yeah. So where's people generally coming from? Like you said, people are working 9 to 5s or tradespeople. Like, where are they coming from? You're meeting on the Saturday, the Sunday. What's the vibe?
Well, at the moment, it's Saturday mornings we're doing. We've played around a little different things, and I'm still experimenting. Like it is Saturday mornings. I'm doing 2 now in Saturday mornings, so It is a little more accessible for people. Big morning. Like it definitely takes a lot to facilitate this kind of space, but it's one of those things, like it's, if you love what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work, which is amazing. Back to your question though, we've got chefs, we've got unemployed, we've got just regular 9 to 5 people, we've got traders, we've got yoga teachers, we've got everyone.
Mm-hmm.
There's no boundaries. There's no kind of networks. People who need this stuff. I think it's like you said, like Wim Hof's a very popular name, and I'm not exactly doing specifically Wim Hof, but it's obviously very similar. So people know that this ice bath thing's a thing, this breathing's a thing, this being in community thing is a thing. And so people are just coming and checking it out. There's young people, there's old people. Like I've had people in their 60s coming down. Like there's just men, there's women, everybody. It started with, now that we're talking about it, it did start, this probably connects in with the pain a little bit. So it started on the beach, like I was saying. It was me and my best friend were just doing it together. And for us, he'd sort of shared a similar story growing up in Geelong and being around the same type of people I was with and having the similar experiences. And we'd always had this conflict. Like when we left Geelong, we'd always had this sort of love-hate relationship with it. So whenever we would come back, it was the way it felt to me is like I'd be walking in a graveyard. Like everywhere I went, there was just ghosts. It was really weird. And so that was something that when I came back, I was like, I really see a lot of opportunity in Geelong and I'm really happy to be back. But I also know a lot of my demons are down here. A lot of the issues why I used to just be so heavy into drinking and smoking and partying, a lot of just seeing my friends lose their way or die or whatever it might have been, you know the stories. And for us, it was really like, we need to find a way to repaint that right now, because we're sitting on the beach watching a sunrise, breathing, doing some really healthy shit. We were like, there's people walking past and they're like, these guys are either really healthy or they're really psycho. And
both.
maybe both. But for us, it was just like, well, the only time we would have been seeing a sunrise on that beach in the past when we lived here was when we hadn't slept yet for a couple of days. So it was a very different perspective and we weren't too sure. But ultimately, that's what it was like. It was like, why does Geelong have to be that place where it is just filled with like these daunting, traumatic memories? Why can't we, like, we're not dead yet. We're still young. Why can't we repaint this? And why can't we do things that we wanted, that we needed when we were younger?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we create this kind of environment and these kind of experiences that might have been helpful to us when we were here and we were that age? Because that didn't exist. There wasn't many other options other than going and partying and going to your mates' places and just whatever. So a lot of initially when we started, it was a lot of people like sort of our age and a bit younger, or like mid-20s, who were sort of at that point where they're over partying, but they don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where do you go from here? How do you transition out of that life? And yeah, that was really interesting. We were getting a lot of those types. So instead of getting a hit necessarily from needing a drink, they do the breathing and be like, what the fuck was that? That was incredible. And then they jump in the ice and they're getting that dopamine hit. It's like, all right, they start to feel alive a little bit. So yeah, that was really a big thing for us when we started it, and that was most of the people coming down, and now we're just getting all types, which is awesome.
So when people are rocking up, are they rocking up in a good mood? Is there that sort of nervous excitement, or are people sort of putting up a little bit of a veil, and once that's gone, they're revealing their true state? Like, are there some sort of heavy situations going on once you're through that initial beat and nervousness?
Yeah, like I mean, look, so far most people do come in nervous, and I say it's probably good because if you're not nervous, it means you are crazy. So nerves are a good thing. Um, so yeah, it's like normal. It's a new experience. There's new people. You don't know what to expect. I guess the con of being out in nature doing this kind of thing is that it is quite exposed. So you do have people walking past and jogging and all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you did a session like this in a facility or somewhere closed, somewhere private, it does feel a lot more safer. So there is that element of it. Like there is a few things going on, but so far nobody's come to me and said that they had a horrible experience. In fact, so far it's been completely unanimously the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool. And yeah, like a lot of people are definitely, I'm seeing people change. They go through it and they're like, that was like, they want to be doing more of it. They got to deep places. They'll tell me about an experience they might have had or something that came up for them and just how they weren't expecting anything like that. And I think it's really cool. I think the community really opens up the possibility for that.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to Dave O'Brien, because this is where I really learned that. Like he'd be doing breathwork sessions at Fifth Element or wherever, and people would just be getting so into it and having the biggest releases. There'd be people crying and laughing and screaming and just going so deep. And what I learned from Dave, I don't know if he did this intentionally, but what I picked up is that he was so vulnerable when he was facilitating and talking and telling the stories. Like he really led and went there and went to the places that hurt him,
Mm-hmm.
which essentially gives everybody else permission to go there as well. It creates that container. It's like I'm this sucks, guys, and I feel it too, and I'm going to be honest about it, and I'm gonna, well, however I feel about it, this is how I'm going to be. This is who I am, and this is just the reality of it. So it's one thing to tell people this is a safe space and this is the kind of experience that really can open you up emotionally, but to step in and to do it and to show them, that creates something else. And I've done my best to do that as much as I can, and I'm still trying to do that as much as is necessary and as much as possible too, like without pushing it. I'm putting myself out there because I feel like that gives everyone else permission to do it. And now we've got a community of people who are open and who are supporting each other and who are going to those places. I definitely think that's the type of community we've started to foster now that we've started to create.
Awesome. So like, even with Wim, he talks about how the reason why he went back there is after losing his wife to suicide and feeling in a pretty similar space himself, and he knew that as a youngster, being in, like you keep talking about, being in nature helped him out. Like being in the cold gave him this invigorating feeling, and luckily it saved him. And then he sort of, I don't know, he pushed the boundaries and did all these incredible things. And it was, thankfully someone sort of tapped him on the shoulder and said, "How the hell are you doing this? We'd like to find out." And from there, this whole scientifically backed, meaningful thing has grown and been around the world, and it's been successful for him. And it's meant that he can, he has something that he can provide and share with the world and grow. And then my first proper session was with Mark and Dino Gladson up in the Gold Coast. And again, if you ever heard Mark's stories, this big burly construction worker, and Aaron Griffiths, the first time I spoke to him, sort of said he was lying right next to him, and he was like, "Bro, you're ruining my experience." This big burly guy just started, first session, bawling his eyes out. And Mark tells that story so well, and the enthusiasm of the man, and that's where him and Dino work in such good tandem. The Bondi Rescue lifeguard who's the swim body and just thoroughly geeks out on all the sort of background, and then this guy that's just absolute passion and he's ripped. He gives you a hug and you need to get another breath because he's knocked the wind out of you, and then he stands
up. He teaches breathing is just resuscitating you after his hugs.
Then he gets up the front and tells you that he, the first time he ever did this, he bawled his eyes out, and you go, oh shit, I'm in for something here, and yeah, sure enough, we did 5 rounds at that experience, and I think there was a good 30 odd people in the room, and we sort of blew the roof off the place, and I got to that place where I passed out, and Mark with his hand on my chest to try to bring me back around, and I was getting massive hallucinations and seeing sort of imagery of pyramids and kind of Hindu-y stuff, and then in a day sort of opened my eyes to a bearded man, it was sort of Jesus like imagery. But yeah, like,
I know what you mean.
yeah, Mark is the Jesus reincarnated. But yeah, and then I sort of post hoc analyzed what I saw as sort of you're saying about trauma, like a shipwreck situation, and that's where my ancestry sort of introduction to New Zealand was a shipwreck on New Year's Eve, and I sort of have taken that as a release of some sort of generational trauma, that that's free. We're safe now. We're safe in this country. We're established as a family. My brothers and I, actually even both my parents have been to university. My brothers and I have done professional degrees and working as professionals. So it's like now it's trying to build it and create that safety that there's no need to worry for anyone. And the same with myself. I don't need to worry. I don't need to be scared. It released a lot of fear that things will be all right. And so you're right. It's just through breath you can create this fantastic story, and when you've got a group of people together, it's amazing. What sort of places have you been or released or whatever?
Like since doing it here, or just in general?
Just in general, mate.
Where do you even begin with that? Man, I'm not even sure how to answer that right now.
It's pretty emotional way. Like sometimes you'll be doing it and you'll finish and you've got tears on your eyes and you're like, what just happened there? And but for the day you'll feel light as anything. It's almost like you've just got rid of that cape or that thing that's on your shoulders and you don't even know what it is.
Yeah, man. It's like these things for me are always so hard to talk about because it is just such a feeling for me. Like I'm so in the feelings and in the emotions. And at the time I'll have a story about it. And then the next week it's going to change and it's going to be something else. But there's been a few big experiences, like with the breathing specifically. I might run through a couple of them. So one time when I did it with Mark and Asha and a bunch of other people, were in Dalesford, the Art of Heart, they called it. It was a big experience. And that was just like, we did a few rounds and there was so many people in there. There was like, I don't know, 50, 100, something like that people in there. And I just went to this place where it was just all light, all colors, all love. Like I just felt completely love. I wasn't in my body. I was gone. And that was absolutely beautiful. I felt really, really good. And I was like, yeah, this is just ease and pleasure and love. That was the last time I felt anything like that. After that, it was always for a couple of years, it was pretty tense. One time with Davo, I had my first DMT release, like proper one. It was at Fifth Element and I was breathing and I literally just remember being gone. I don't remember exactly what I was seeing, but there wasn't colors. It was all in grayscale, but it felt very psychedelic. Like I couldn't feel my body. I didn't know what was going on. All I could see was something that resembled the, what do you call it? The Statue of Liberty, and something that resembled the Eye of Sauron. If you ever watched Lord of the Rings, you know, yeah, that was just in the background the whole time. And I've seen that so many times ever since, which is insanity. But that one was like, I sort of came to it and it was like, it was releasing a lot of like, oh, I don't know. It didn't feel comfortable. It felt really uncomfortable. I was like cradling myself and like figuring it all out. But it released something. And then I kept moving. And then that was actually just before last time I spoke to you, I was sort of going through a big fit of depression and I had this LSD trip that was super, super deep and was releasing a lot of things in me. It was all kind of very off that. All the weird stuff I'd been feeling was coming off of that. And I think ultimately, I'll get back to it a little bit. So the most recent release I had was a few weeks ago when I was doing some breathing down at the beach, and I actually had another DMT release, but this time I came to it on the sand in the beach, and there were 20 people around me. They're all looking at me. I'm thinking, I came back to it and I'm like thinking, fuck, I last thing I need is you people around me right now. I'm just having a DMT release, but I don't know how to explain that to you.
Yeah.
So I'm trying, they're like, what? Oh, do you need a hand? Do you need a hand? And I'm trying to tell them, fuck off. I'm all good. It's fine. But I couldn't actually tell them this because I couldn't breathe. I was coughing and coughing and coughing and I couldn't get any air in my lungs. I'm like, what's going on? Next minute, there were some paramedics nearby. They come over. I started coughing blood up everywhere, all over the beach, everywhere. I'm just like I'm still trying to tell them like, it's good. It will calm down in a minute. Like I do this all the time, but blood's coming out. I'm spitting blood out everywhere. Next minute, I was in ICU for the next 12 hours or so. And I spent 4 days or nights in hospital.
Yeah.
So that was the most recent kind of release that I've had.
What did they sort of think had happened there?
They thought I was dying.
Yeah.
Like the medics, it took them a while to convince me to go to hospital because I was just doing the stubborn male thing where I was just like, I'm not going. But eventually they're like, they convinced me it's a good idea. And then I got to the hospital and shit got pretty real for a minute. For a minute, I realized like how serious this was. Yeah. And I went through all the emotions of like, fuck, I'm just because I'm in hospital now doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to make it out. Like it was pretty full on. But so essentially they got in there. They didn't know what the hell was going on. They couldn't understand what triggered it or how it happened. My results kept coming bad. Like my lungs were in horrible shape. I was hooked up to oxygen, breathing out of oxygen, and my kidneys were also going down too. So they were like, all right, if this is your lungs and your kidneys, this is like really bad.
Yeah.
So I was one of the most serious cases in ICU. I didn't even realize that, but like it was full on. And I'm just being smart ass, just flirting with nurses. Like I wasn't taking it seriously at all. But I don't know. For me, I sort of did a lot of, I came to a lot of mental things. Like I did for a second kind of face my mortality, and I had to come to that part of myself and be like, all right, well, what, like, I had to ask some of the hard questions. Like, what if you don't come out of this? What if this is actually serious? Are you okay with that? Mm-hmm. How's life been? Are you all right with that? I won't get too much into that because that was pretty type personal stuff. But ultimately, the answer I came up with was, yeah, I did my best. I honestly did my best. And if this is how it's got to go, well, let's do it. So I was pretty good. I'm pretty happy that I experienced that because I always wondered what I'd be like at that moment. But once I kind of crossed that bridge, I just had this intuition. I just knew I'm going to be all right. Now it's going to really hurt and be really painful for a while because every breath I took, I was literally coughing and it was like I was in agony. It was so painful. But I also knew, well, if anyone's trained their mental toughness, I've done a lot of that. So I can handle this, whatever it is. This is a mind over matter game. And so I knew whatever happens right now, I am going to recover. I'm going to get through this. So they kept on testing. They kept on trying to give me lots of drugs, which I didn't necessarily take, and doing all this kind of testing, doing this, doing that. The test kept coming back like I was getting better and better and better. And essentially by the end of the 4 days, they have no idea how it happened or what happened. And they don't know how I recovered so quickly.
Wow.
Western medicine has blind spots.
Yeah, I'm confused. I thought you were going to tell me the answer there of what happened, but shit.
No. Technically, no. Like technically, I mean, there was a lot of blood vessels that popped in my lungs, and what they reckon is my lung somehow became like a vacuum and just soaked up all this blood, and then but they can't explain the kidneys. They had all these theories. There was lots of theories that kept coming off and they kept trying, but as the results kept coming back and as we did more tests, we kept on proving that it can't be that at all. So they don't know. So it was really interesting. I mean, there were also points where I was like, a lot of the drugs and the medication, for starters, I had a good experience in hospital. They were really, really like supportive of what I wanted and what I didn't want, because I don't like to go through pharmaceuticals unless it's an absolute necessity. And they were really cooperative with that. They weren't trying to force anything on me. I was in the COVID ward and had to do a test at one point, and all of them there were just like, this is bullshit. Like, we haven't had COVID in so long. It's not that fucking bad. Like, so they were all actually just like, we just have to do this. So my experiences with that were really good. But there were points where I was really like, all right, well, at what point does Western medicine be something where it is like, no, I should actually do this because it is the better thing to do right now? I hadn't really been confronted with that since I'd been into this alternative medicine kind of world.
Well, what were they trying to achieve with the medicines that they were giving you?
Well,
were they
initially,
trying to like coagulate, or what were they trying to stabilize you, or stop an immune reaction? What were they trying to do?
Yeah. Initially, it was things like Panadols and like all that kind of typical stuff, which I'm just like, I don't mind pain. It's a teacher. I'll get through it. But then there was a point, in particular, when he was really worried, there was a point where he thought this might be some kind of viral infection. And if it is, we need to get on top of it now rather than later, because if we wait too long, it can cause irreversible damage. That was his sort of thing. And so at that point, they wanted to give me some steroids and some immunosuppressants. And that's when I was just like, I pushed it off for a while because I did feel like slowly I'm getting better. And I do believe I'm going to get better. Like, my gut tells me that my mind can overcome this. I'm just going to Joe Dispenza this one. But then I was also there sitting like, well, maybe there was something in me. I tend to be an extremist. I'm an Aries. I go too hard in things. I know this about my nature. That very well might have been why I'm in this mess in the first place. And so for me, it was sort of like, is me pushing away medicine right now me just doing that? Am I just like being an Aries right now? Am I just being extreme in this? So eventually I ended up having a little bit of it. And it is what it is. Like, it's like, whatever it was, I can recover from it. I figured this is fine. And turned out it wasn't a viral infection. So yeah, even that theory was wrong. But yeah, I mean, that was an interesting thing. That just really tested my values. And I guess now I understand a little bit better.
So what's the sort of follow-up that they want to do when you're discharged?
Well, what was that? What was the follow-up?
Do they have some sort of follow-up, or are you discharged?
Well, at the time, they just kept on doing x-rays. I did CT scans. Like, they kept on doing bloods. Like, they ripped so much blood out of me while I was there. But like, my kidneys just were getting back to normal. My lungs looked like they were getting better. And eventually I got to a point where they're like, well, it's probably not a viral infection, so we don't need to keep giving you these immunosuppressants. And yeah, it just got to a point where it's like, well, everything's better. You're not at a point where we need to keep you in hospital anymore. I was breathing on my own again. So like, we'll follow up in a few weeks and maybe just have another checkup and do some more tests. But other than that, we have no idea what's going on, basically.
Have you put that up on the Wim Hof Facebook page? Like, you need to do that. You need to find out if this has happened to anybody else. Like, far out.
well, that's the thing. It was like, I appreciated Western medicine because, like, without that oxygen, I would have been fucked. Like, it definitely saved me to an extent. But it also has its blind spots. And this is where I was like, all right, now that I'm back and I'm alive and no one knows what's going on, it's probably time to go talk to the yogis. They've been doing this for a lot longer.
Yeah. Shit.
Yeah. And so I've got some theories about it. Like, I'm definitely working through it, but I don't know, man. Like, for me, it was just sort of like, it was really just cemented the fact, like, well, this is the path I'm on. Like, if I'm getting to the extremes where I'm on this spiritual journey, I'm on this health journey, I'm on this journey of becoming who I truly am, and everything in between. This is a really serious fucking event to happen.
Oh yeah.
And so it's just like, for me, it just really cemented like this. A lot of imposter syndrome was sort of like you can't be imposter syndrome because people don't take things as far as you do. People haven't been breathing this consistently for half a decade as much as you have and everything. Like, this is your path. You're not going to use that uni degree. You're not going to have that 9 to 5. don't even worry about it. This is what you're doing. And the whole time I was in there from the start to the end, I just knew this is just the teacher. If I do make it through this, I'm here because this is a little bit woo-woo, but my soul's here because it wants to learn something. So that's why I'm going through this. And I just hope that is a part of it. I feel different. I do feel different going through the experience. I feel like I've grown a lot. I feel like I've learned. I don't necessarily know everything, but it really did feel like a big purge. It felt like there was something dead in me that just needed to come out.
Maybe all those darts and things that you blew up your nose back in the day. Maybe that was them coming out.
100%, man. I'm not disputing that in the slightest. It was catch-up time, and it was just like, all right, like, you're not just tiptoeing in right now. We're doing this all at once. Fucking go.
Yeah. I wonder if, like, you brought up Asher Packman's name. Like, I wonder if he'll probably have an idea, a theory, like, given his blood condition. Like, wonder what he'd have to say on the topic.
I got to talk to him. He's one of those dudes. Oh, Asher, I don't know. It'll be amazing if he hears this, but like, he's just one of those dudes. I love him so much and respect him so much. And I always feel like reaching out to him, but I never actually make time to like just catch up. Like, yeah, he's one of those people. Like, I love Asher. We're great friends, but it's just interesting that you bring that up because I'm like, no, this is one of those people that I actually need to go talk to. I've been wanting to for a long time. So I'll take that as a sign, right?
That's right. Yeah. If you are
Actually,
listening,
if you don't do this before, if you hear this and I haven't reached out to you, then I'm not being responsible.
There you go. There's a bit of a push. So like when you sort of think 30,000 feet of Geelong, you got the Cats there, and it's like this elite team that did so well for so long. Is that like a vibe of the city, or it's just a bunch of imported people playing for the town?
Oh no, Geelong are absolute fanatics about Geelong, dude. Yeah. No, this town's crazy about it. Like it's yeah. The first,
but there's like being a fan and being absolutely fanatical about a team, and then there's actually the eliteness that they friggin' won the AFL a number of times and were just outrageous. There's two different sides of this. There's like the fanaticism, which there, especially when you win the AFL and you're a small town in Victoria, well, not small town, but small city in Victoria. And then there's like the elite level that it actually takes to do that. Like to those two things. And then there's the actually elite level of the team itself and the people involved to be able to do that. Does that sort of flow down into the city that it's sort of, we are / were the best?
We are the best. It says it in our victory song. We are the greatest team of all.
Righto. Good.
Why would it be in our song if it wasn't true, Ryan?
Love it.
Come on, mate. Use your head.
Yeah. But like as the city, like where does that show up? Like if you are the best, how does that show up as being true to yourself? Does that follow through?
Interesting question. I haven't really thought about it. And now I'm just trying to think what ways it does. I mean, in general, it's just like Geelong is a hard place to explain. Like if you're not from Geelong, even though it is a pretty big city, it has a very small town mentality if you've grown up here. And there's this thing that Geelong people like to do where they shit all over how shit Geelong is. But if you're not from Geelong, we will fight to the death about how proud we are about this place and how good it is. So that's all. My experience with a footy has always been that element. It is the very just tribal thing. It is like, well, this is our team. This is something we can back and get around. It's the colours. What I'm hearing when you say that question, kind of actually, I mean, I'm taking it a little bit personally again in terms of what I see at it. I like to take things personally, because I've always seen that side of it, the fanatical fan type side of it, and that's what I've always been a part of. And the rest of it's never really been, I guess, it's a bit of a tall poppy thing. I guess it's like that's not us, that's someone else's business. We haven't really thought about it. But now I'm back in Geelong, and like I said, I'm trying to rewrite these memories, and I'm trying to flush out these ghosts, and I'm trying to paint the town a whole new color. And I definitely am feeling that. Like, I think Geelong does have a lot of potential and a lot to be proud for, and I really want to see where this city can go. Like, in my opinion, and something that I'm feeling really passionate about right now is I would love it if Geelong became like the wellness capital of Victoria, if not Australia. I think it's got the potential to do that. We've got such a vibrating wellness scene. People are so into their health. We've got the beaches along the coast nearby. We've got the waterfront down there. Like, it's got a lot of potential to really be a live city and a thriving city. And for me, I feel like that's where the future of it lies. I think in 5-10 years, Geelong can be absolutely be, in terms of wellness and health, the hub, the place to be in Australia. So that's not exactly related to footy, but that's how I heard your question.
That was exactly right. Like, in Southland, and I guess that's where the sort of question comes from. In Southland, where I'm from, we're like hugely parochial. In netball, we're the greatest team for it. Like, when it was a provincial competition, we won it every single year, and then it turned into a little bit of a franchise system. And again, despite different team, different setup, the team managed to win out for a number of years and be competitive for a number of years, and that's changed. Has changed again as sort of professional sport does. And then same with rugby. Like, the reason I've got the nickname Stag is because we finally got this team together that went out there and won, and shit did the town sort of just like all of a sudden turn into like, holy cow, we're the best. Like, get out of here. And then a bunch of guys I went to school with ended up going to the Olympics and being world champions and stuff like that. And it's like, well, what's the excuse? Like, that proves that it doesn't matter where you're from. There is something that has to come from within you to be elite. And so I guess that's kind of like shaped my thinking, and like, whilst I might not be a world champion or be at the Olympics, I hope to drive that, and that's kind of why I sort of talk about this, trying to get rid of the imposter syndrome, trying to like get rid of these barriers that are in front of me, or these sort of restrictions I place on myself. And it was funny, 2 podcasts ago, my friend being like, well, Elon Musk, what does he do? Why can't that be you? And yeah, straight away you just get this flood of limiting beliefs, and you're like, that's gnarly. That's gnarly, the programming. And that's like kind of where we started, wasn't it? Like, this programming that you have on you, the moment you like look at the example, and then when you try to turn it back on yourself, that mirroring back on yourself, you just hear it like flood over you, like, but this. And you're like, fucking hell.
Yeah, seriously. It's there. We've all got it.
Yeah.
We've all got it. Yeah, no, I think it is an all internal thing. I think that's why the question confused me a little bit, because I don't see sports as something that inspires people to become elite. I see it more as it's a tribalism thing, and we go watch the sport, and it's my team kicking your team's ass, and now we can all party and drink about it later. That's how I viewed sports. Some of the most impressive people I've ever met aren't people that necessarily played sports teams. A lot of them are too, don't get me wrong, but like, yeah. I guess I mean, I was never that hugely into sports anyway. For me, that was always the kind of thing. So I've learnt how to get the best out of myself, and that hasn't been where my learning's taken place in sports fields or in sports environments. It has been outside of that. It's been through everyday life, and it's been through just my experiences, pushing my own limits.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. The conditioning part actually really, like I just remembered like how much I have noticed that part about being at home, like just how wired I am. I'm an optimist in general, but also the first things that go into my head are always just how everything can go wrong. Like, it's been a superpower in my professional life, because in business terms, I can play devil's advocate like nobody else. Which I was like, it's helped me in coaching now since I've started coaching too, which is incredible. I can look at the worst of every situation. I can look at all the different types of. I can just look at all the scenarios, But in my personal life, it's definitely something where it's just like the first thing that will come into my head is all the reasons why I shouldn't, all the reasons why I'm not good enough, all the reasons why this might be a bad idea. And I'm really noticing that, like living with my bubba who's from a whole nother world, who's from a tiny little village, who's lived through world wars, like who's come with nothing. It's been such a mirror to sort of say, that's where I come from, and this is my conditioning. And now that I'm seeing it here and I'm a little bit wiser, I'm actually noticing that in myself, how I act that way.
And it's the dichotomy of it, like you said about how in business it's such a good skill. And you hear Ray Dalio talk about red teaming the decisions. He basically comes up with a position for investing and gets everybody in the room to tell him why it's a bad idea. Like,
Yeah.
and you know, they try. You hear these people talk about steel manning the thing that you disagree with. Like, try come up with all the reasons why what you disagree with is valid, and argue with yourself basically. And that's exactly what you're saying. But then when it comes, the dichotomy of it is that can create this paralysis or this hesitation and create a missed opportunity. And again, that sports analogy, like the people that are incredible seem to be in this flow. They're doing everything before everybody else. They've got this high speed reactivity, and they're uninhibited. And so yeah, like I was just saying, that dichotomy of things is pretty amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, things can go both ways.
Yeah. And so, like, you've sort of gone from like hospitality to fitness to now you're looking at wellness, and your optimism, as you're saying about, was like this place on the coast near Melbourne can be a hub, like, do you have a vision? Have you created a vision for it, or is this something that's just sort of starting to bubble up inside you?
Dude, I can't stop having visions and ideas and things right now. Like, that's the problem.
Yeah.
There's too much. So I'm just taking it one step at a time and sort of doing what's in front of me. But I guess that is the big, hairy, audacious goal. Like, the kind of thing that inspires me the most is, like, I would love in 10 years time for Geelong to just be an absolute center for fitness, for wellness, for health, for all the type of stuff that we're into. I just want people to live strong, healthy, good lives. I want people to be resilient and to be able to overcome themselves and face their fears and start to follow their hearts and set out and find their dreams, achieve their dreams. Like, I think I'm fucking struggling to word myself. That's how passionate I'm getting about it, mate. But yeah, there is a part of me that is like, I would love to see that. I'd love it if, like, the Great Ocean Road down here could have a little bit of a Byron Bay kind of vibe. Like, I feel like there's just not necessarily like Byron Bay, but just that kind of portal where people can just drop in, get healthy, be authentic, share, and we can just live an alternative to how we've lived. Like, I think COVID's really brought up for me that, and a lot of people, that a lot of the systems we got in place aren't working. A lot of the ways that we're living these days isn't necessarily sustainable. We've got obesity. You're not allowed to say obesity anymore if you're
I know. I saw that the other day. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Dr. Pride put it up on his Instagram, and I was just like,
yeah.
I had to have a moment like, do not be triggered. I was like, I had clicked on comment, and I was just like, whew, do not comment.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing to be gained from reacting to this. And it was almost like Prime was baiting anyone. Like, what? Like, he was just putting it in your face, like, this shit.
He's good like that, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Well, regardless, whatever your fucking word is for it these days, whatever you want to call it, that's 60% of the nation now.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Suicide rates are through the roof. Loneliness is through the roof. All of these things, like, we've got all these diseases of lifestyle that don't need to be here. And I'm just, we're living off this inertia, off this time that's just created this world that we're currently living in. And why? Like, that's just how our culture is. Our culture dictates that we need to be drinking all the time and partying all the time, and that you don't have to be obese if you are obese, and that you can, we've got ways of encouraging things that aren't necessarily the best way for us. And in COVID, I really seen an opportunity to change that. The whole, the new normal, that kind of concept. That's something that really stuck to me. On a personal level, COVID hit. And for me, it was a wake up call to be like, shit's hit the fan and you can have all the opinions you want, but you're not in a situation where you can actually do anything about it. Go sort your shit out. That's the message I got. And so that's what I've been working on since then. But on a grander scale, it's the Roaring 20s right now. Have you thought about that?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
It's the Roaring 20s. Did we talk about it last time?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Well, the last time it was the Roaring 20s, it was post World War, and it was obviously very depressing times, and it was a lot of
Post-Spanish
heartache
flu.
in the world. Yeah, there was a lot of rough stuff going on. But at the same time, it was one of the biggest cultural revolutions that happened at the start of that century. Like, we got, one example is, out of the Roaring 20s, we got speakeasy bars. So a lot of people know what they are, but that's like, if you go to a really fancy bar that's got bookshelves and the lights dimmed and everyone's wearing suits and really fancy cocktails, that's where speakeasies came from, because it also used to be the Prohibition. And in the Prohibition, alcohol was illegal, which meant it drove everybody underground to places where they could speak easy. And it created this kind of new culture, this new thing that never used to exist before. And that's flowed on through to this very day. It's still alive. So as far as I'm concerned, as bad as everything is and as rough as everything is, we've got a chance to rewrite culture right now. We've got a chance to flip everything that's creating these horrible statistics and these horrible, depressing lives that we're living, or a lot of people are experiencing. And we can focus on building something new, something that's never been created before. Like, yeah, it might be rough, it might be a bit of pressure, but as far as I'm concerned, if we are going to create a new normal and one that's going to serve us better, now's the time for us to do it. And it's by actually doing it that it's going to happen. So hence why I'm having ice baths on weekends. Here's something new that we're going to do. Hence, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's going to take a whole community of people that are inspired to do this, but that's where we're at. And so we're talking about my vision. That's my vision. I want to rewrite culture.
Work it. I love that. And mate, how good is it knowing Mr. Mark Clure and seeing what he's built and created? Like, that's what I try to portray with this podcast, is like, here's some examples, like I was saying about with those guys I went to school with, they went to the Olympics and won world titles. Like, there's the examples that, like, things are possible. And this construction worker that can bawl his eyes out has created just a thing of beauty. And yeah, all the vibes you're saying about the good side of Byron Bay, like that's the sort of thing that Byron Bay does have, and he's got that in the mountains of Victoria. Like, how good is it? Because it looks freaking good on Instagram. And Dave said to me, like, mate, that's nothing. Kent has said, that's nothing. Like, what's it like, bro?
Nothing like it, man. It is fucking incredible. Like, the land itself is powerful on its own. It's just, for me, it was like I had butterflies in my stomach, because I've known Mark since he was talking about it before he'd even bought the property. And now to see that he's built it, that he's created it with his own 2 hands, and how it's come together, and I've been there for a couple of events now, it is like nothing else. It's incredible. Like, it's just when somebody sets their heart out on something and you see them actually accomplish it, it's inspiring, man.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
fucking amazing. Yeah, when you can, you must check it out.
Oh yeah, no, open the bubble. Yeah, no, it's
That's it, man. Victoria is going to be the place to be if you don't already know it. Like, it is all happening in Victoria. It's going to be like Byron and everything. But the thing is, down here it gets cold too, and we're all fans of cold therapy. Like, it's not the weather's not a problem, in my opinion. It's your attitude towards the weather that's the problem. It's your ability to be able to handle that's the problem. So it's going to be like Byron Bay, but like without all the wusses, maybe.
There's no such thing as bad weather. There's just wrong clothes. I think it's the
right. Or not enough ice bathing.
Well, you're a pussy. Harden up. Yeah.
Oh, you're being pussy.
being from the bottom of the world, eh? Like, when I used to live in Auckland, people were like, "Oh, you're used to this." I'm like, no. Cold is cold. You just wear the right clothes. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Cold's always going to be cold, but that's why it's beautiful. Why would you want cold to be anything other than what it is?
Yeah, and like anybody that does an ice bath regularly, they don't like, oh, I love it. It's easy as I just jump in and I feel nothing. Like, what would be the point then? Like, it's kind
It's
of like
shit every single time.
it's shit every single time. Like,
Shit.
I start my morning with like am in under the shower hose, and I turn it on and go fuck. Like,
Yeah. Seriously. I get it every week. People are like, oh, you must do this all the time. This must be nothing for you. And I'm like, yeah, hold on until you guys are done and watch me get in. I'm going to be screaming more than you do.
yeah,
It sucks.
I'm gonna do my big like.
Yeah.
You can like get in there and like you breathe.
You got to go through it, man. You're going to. But yeah, that's exactly why we do it. That is the point of it.
Yeah.
So
And
if cold stopped being cold, I'd be devastated.
Yeah, and I like that's what I've learned. Not to any great extent, but talking to people who experienced ultra runners and Ironman and stuff like that, they sort of said to me, how are you getting on? I was like, a bit niggly and all that sort of stuff, and like, I went on a run the other day. I wasn't hurt, but man, it was painful. And then they kind of go to you, oh yeah, it always hurts. You just get faster, and you're like, oh, okay, so. I guess the hurt is part of it, and it is part of it. That's like it's part of the achievement. Is like I pushed through that pain. I pushed, and like I went back into the CrossFit class 2 weeks ago, and I'm gonna go back to doing CrossFit, and it was just like that feeling of tasting blood, my heart rate just going crazy, being done, lying on the ground, making sweat angels. I was like, and my body shaking. I was like, I'm so crazy. I love this feeling. Like I miss this feeling. Like how weird, but it's so good at the same time. Yeah.
It's all a part of life. Like I'm just I really feel like people who shy away from that stuff, like, I mean, everyone can live life however they want to be, and it's nice to be comfortable, but I'm a big fan of leaning into this discomfort, because it is, you're missing half of life without it. Like, it is there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you have to like it. It doesn't mean it has to be the most enjoyable thing, but it is still a very real experience, and it means you're still alive to take another breath and actually feel with it and actually understand it. And that's, you can appreciate the beauty out of that too if you give yourself a chance to. Like, it's just, I don't know, to me it's almost like you're blocking yourself off to another level of love if you demonize these things and curse them and cast them out. It's, you're limiting yourself. Like, maybe you can learn how to love the beauty in something that seems so unlovable. Maybe like 50 Cent said, like, joy wouldn't feel so good if it wasn't for rain.
Shit, he's good. And it's also like understandable, because we all have our elements where we poo-poo something because we're scared of the change, or we're scared that we might like it. Like it's it's relatable, and just from us, it's that doing these things is normal. So when people are kind of like, this is rubbish, or well, what would you want to do that for? You can, it's just the same thing, yeah. No, it's weird how our brain comes up with the excuses and tries to keep us in our groove. It's quite funny.
Yeah, that's how we're wired. But...
yeah. No, sweet man. What is gonna keep you going? That's what I want to know, Steve. What's gonna keep you going? You've nearly died. What's gonna keep you going?
Gosh, you'd hope that would be enough.
Isn't that bizarre? You nearly die, and then you've got to find a reason to keep going. Like,
yeah,
the existential angst.
Yeah, it's a little bit, man. I don't know, like it just didn't really feel like a near-death experience to me until I realized it actually is, and then it was really weird for me. I don't know. I'm a little bit like Memento Mori. I'm a bit obsessed with death anyway. So as it was happening, I think I just had this level of awareness to it. It's almost like I've always wondered what I'd be like in this kind of a near-death situation. And it's crazy, but I was literally like a little bit like, I was so aware of the experience. Like the pain and everything of it. I was like, I just want to feel everything about this right now, because I want to know who I am in this situation and what's going on. What's going to keep me going? That, just the excitement of that vision is keeping me going a lot. Like, I just think there's so much potential and so much opportunity. I feel like I'm at this point in my life. Like, last time I spoke to you, I was definitely like crawling out of this fit of depression. I was a little bit lost. I feel like now I've found myself a little bit more. Like I feel like I'm actually starting to become a little bit more responsible, a little bit more. I think it's just a little bit more grown up in that sense. And so that's making me understand just how powerful I actually am and how much I can accomplish and achieve. Setting out and doing action is a big thing for me, like starting these ice baths and getting this community together and just seeing the results of what comes out of it. That's inspiring the shit out of me. I think I'm just in this fortunate position right now where it's like there are people hungry for these kind of things, and I've had something to offer them. So that's been huge, and it's been a different experience for me, because every time I've been, like when I've been at Fifth Element Wellness or something like that, I've always had everyone else to lean on too. Like Dave's been there. So I don't know something, go talk to Dave. He'll be able to figure it out. He'll be able to help you out, or something else. Where here it's like, well, no, now I'm bringing this all, and I'm not, it's not that I'm bringing it all. Like everyone's obviously a part of it and doing something, but like here it sort of is like, I've only got myself to rely on, and I've been able to trust myself and rely on myself a bit more. And I've proven that to myself now that I am very capable. And so that's driving me. That's exciting to me, because I feel like that's something I've tried a lifetime to really overcome and understand. And I'm really, really excited to see what I can personally do and where I can go from it. I want to see what a Byron Bay down on the Great Ocean Road looks like. And yeah, man, I'm just fucking terrified of going to that point where I'm in the hospital or whatever I am, and this time I'm not going out and there was things left undone. That's the worst feeling to me. I can't deal with that.
Mate, that's both powerful, inspiring, and real. And I love that you brought up momentum more there. It's a awesome sort of mind frame tool to appreciate every day. Bring us back to what we started off with appreciating and being having some gratitude for where you are each day. And yeah, that's bloody cool, mate. This has been a wicked conversation, Steve. We said last time we'll do it in person soon, but fuck, it'll happen.
Right.
No,
it's always a good conversation when I'm talking to you, man. It's fun.
Good stuff, mate. I'll press stop, and hope people loved it.
Epic.